Hello, MCU fans. Today is going to be a bit of a unique video. On the Discord server that goes along with this YouTube channel, we asked the users to provide their hottest MCU takes, and then we did a poll to rank those takes from cold to, well, smoking hot. Now, I'm going to try to avoid my own commentary, which is going to be hard on some of these, because each person that provided their hot take had to defend it. So I'm going to let them defend it. I may throw in a few comments here and there, but for the most part, I want you to see what the people felt and said who did each of these hot takes. So we're going to look at some of the runners-up, some of the ones that were, a little cold, a little medium temperature, and then we're going to look at the top 20 hottest takes. And boy, there are some spicy ones in there. All right, so without further ado, let's dive right in and see what we can find out. So these are the runner-up hot takes. So MK Sabbath said, Eternals was fine without a villain. The presence of one would have made the movie worse. Seslek said, Beyonder is too powerful to be the villain of Secret Wars, and Doom is better. Various said, nobody has a good fan cast for the Fantastic Four. Amen. Chicken Fat said, Spider-Man 3 is very underrated. Spurple said, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 5 is the worst season, and it's not even remotely close. Killer T77 said, Quantumania is awesome. Probably Ken said, No Way Home is way overrated. Toto said, I hope they don't introduce Quake, and other than the Netflix shows, I hope they decanonize all the shows before Disney+. Oh, man. Wow, I'm stepping away from that one. Electrospino says, I liked the Miss Marvel show more than Moon Knight. Blue Brickle / Schnarg said, Black Panther is boring. TC12 said, I hate the Amazing Spider-Man suit. TC12 also said, Wanda sucks in Phase 4. Drew said, What If is the worst thing in the MCU. SimCity said, Nick Fury losing his eye to the Flurkin wasn't that bad. Turtle says, Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy has aged horribly and is the most overrated trilogy of all time. And Spurples added that Cloak and Dagger is just short of top tier. Wow. So these are just the runners-up. You can imagine the top 20 are going to be interesting. Remember, tell me whether you agree with these, disagree, and maybe, if the explanations that are coming sold you on the hot takes. All right, number 20. Coldbra, we'll get it. Cobra said, no Marvel character needs an R rating. You see, Punisher's a little surprised to hear that. Cobra said, I'm not saying this because superhero movies need to be for kids and an R rating alienates them. I don't really care about that. Not everything needs to be for everybody. That being said, when people discuss certain characters coming into the MCU, you hear, I hope Disney doesn't ruin them by not letting them be R rating. But I can't think of a single Marvel character that wouldn't work in a PG-13 setting. Deadpool, Blade, Wolverine, Moon Knight, and the Punisher are some of the characters people insist should be R-rated, but I just don't see why they have to be. Sure, some of them work better with a more lenient rating, but it isn't necessary. The majority of these characters' appearances were in comics that were approved by the Comics Code Authority, which is much more conservative than the MPAA. I think this push is based on a lot of things. A misunderstanding of who some of the characters are, a misunderstanding of what makes a movie mature, and Disney's weird Puritan guidelines. The Batman was one of the most mature comic book movies that came out over the last decade, and it still had a PG-13 rating. Okay. Number 19, DRC said, post-credit scenes as a concept aren't good. Captain America would disagree, right? Now, don't get me wrong. I like the post-credit scenes themselves. There are some good ones, but as a concept, it isn't good. Maybe I'm saying this because for the longest time I never saw Marvel movies in the theaters, but I don't really like them as a concept. It just makes you sit through the credits just for the hope that the end credit scene is good and sets up the future in a big way. This is why I just look at the post-credit scenes online once I'm done. Just seems better. Now, as for mid-credit scenes, that's different, as they usually come after a more stylized set of credits, which more people sit through. Interesting. Number 18, Surf says, Thor Love and Thunder is massively overhated. Looks like Thor would agree. If the comedy didn't land for you, that's only a small portion of the movie and is largely contained to the first half. The action was great, Probably better than Ragnarok, the Shadow Realm sequence particularly. Additionally, it was very visually pleasing, and there was only one noticeably bad VFX shot, which has since been improved. The soundtrack and score were some of the best in the MCU. The use of November Rain in the third act give me chills every time. It's my favorite musical moment in the MCU. Gore was a great villain. Sure, he could have butchered some more. We can't be sure why those scenes were cut, but everything he did was great. The movie explores many interesting things with the theme of the parent-child relationship, even extending to the song choice, like how Immigrant Song related to the plot of Ragnarok. So while yes, there was a better movie in there somewhere, what we got is still excellent, and I'm grateful it exists. Now, I'm really glad this hot take is in here, because this is the only one that is positive for Love and Thunder. There are a lot of negative ones coming, or at least the Love and Thunder takes a hit in several of the ones coming up. But this is good. Love and Thunder deserves a little credit. All right, number 17. Turtle says, Winter Soldier is the most overrated MCU project. Okay, defend it, Turtle. Here we go. It's not bad by any means, but I've honestly never even viewed it as one of my favorites. People act like it's awesome because it's dark and violent, but I fail to understand how that alone makes it the best MCU film. Bucky is cool, but I find Pierce forgettable as a villain. It's, in my opinion, the weakest Captain America film, lacking interesting themes like the other two, and it's far from the best Phase 2 film. Whew, does not look like Captain America agrees. All right, number 16, by Toto. Captain America 1 and 2 aren't as good as you remember. So back to back, man. Captain America 2 getting hits back to back. All right, Toto, what do you got? 1 only works if you have a lot of nostalgia for it. First and second act are fine, but any scenes in Germany or any Hydra scenes, and they completely drop the ball. As for Captain America 2, you loved the action scenes and you enjoyed yourself so much during your 2014 cinema screening that a nostalgic lens makes your viewing experience foggy. In retrospect, it's weaker than a lot of MCU films, and to me, lesser than Thor 4. Wow. Well, I said Thor 4 is going to take some hits. It didn't take a hit here. We're literally saying that Captain America 1 and 2 are lesser than Thor 4. That's a hot take. That's a hot take. Zero Guams Ever says Thor 2011 is the best Thor movie. Kenneth Branagh is an excellent director, and I think he brings a lot to the original Thor with the Shakespearean set design and Asgardian dialogue. I think the time on Earth is just as great as when Thor is on Asgard, helped by Jane, Darcy, and Eric all being great characters. Loki is well written and makes for a compelling and interesting villain, never sure whether you should sympathize with him. And I think it's better than Ragnarok, even though I like Taika, as I think it gets too silly sometimes, and it's especially slow in the middle. Also, Odin falling to the ground after being yelled at is very funny. All right, fair. Cobra, right back with us again. MCU Spider-Man has a bad supporting cast. Look at the shock on Ned's face. He can't believe someone would say that. All right. One of the biggest strengths of The Amazing Spider-Man is the expansive and interesting supporting characters that have surrounded Peter for over 60 years, and that element is completely lost in the MCU. There's barely depth to the side characters. Across 3 movies, we don't learn anything substantial about Ned, Betty, Flash, or Mr. Harrington. Most are used for a few whatever gags and aren't treated like real characters. Beyond not feeling like her source material, MJ's personality completely changes for the worse after Homecoming. In Far From Home, she acts like a completely different and bland person. The romance between her and Peter is also pretty weak, with no previous setup. In No Way Home, the MJ-Peter romance is improved upon, but I still feel like it's not very good. Ned and MJ don't have enough screen time to be characters, they're just used for Peter's motivation. Aunt May isn't used well enough in Far From Home, and I don't like her death as a replacement for Uncle Ben, but otherwise I like Aunt May. The side characters in the Raimi films all have depth and actual personalities to them, even the ones that are used for gags. Strong points. Strong points by Cobra. All right, number 13. Chicken Fat says Homecoming is one of the best movies of all time. Let's stress that. Not just good, of all time. All right? Spider-Man Homecoming is in the top 3 best MCU movies, and it actually used to be my favorite movie of all time. It's not anymore, but it's definitely still in my top movies ever. It got overtaken by Infinity War as my all-time favorite movie. Homecoming is still my second favorite movie, Spider-Man movie, behind No Way Home. But I think it's super underrated. The high school stuff works so well that the whole school vibe is great. The Vulture is great. The twist is great. The side cast is great. I just love it. So that's interesting. Back to back, we have the side cast is terrible and the side cast is great. You got to love it, right? That's why we throw out the opinions. All right, DRC says, what? Wong is overrated? Yeah, I'm as surprised as you, Wong. I'm as surprised as you. Bring it, DRC. You better bring it, baby. Look, I don't hate Wong. I just feel he's overrated. It feels like no one really cared for Wong up until, at the very least, Infinity War. And frankly, I don't understand all the sudden love for Wong. Yeah, he's cool and all, but he's not one of the best MCU characters. Send all hate mail to DRC on the Discord server. All right, Caps says, Luke Cage is the best Marvel TV show. Interesting. Mind you, we have Daredevil and Jessica Jones out there too. So this is why it is a hot take. All right, what you got, Caps? Luke Cage's overall story of the 2 seasons was more cohesive and felt more fitting for the character. I really enjoyed how you didn't need to have watched Jessica Jones to be invested in their relationship and the crushing impact of it ending and coming back together throughout the season. The side characters, in my opinion, are also very interesting. Misty and Claire were excellent additions to the Netflix saga, and I wish they were brought in for more detective and medical work, respectively. The villains were also incredibly well done. Cottonmouth was the most fearsome of the 4 main villains. As the series went on, Mariah took her place as the king, and the progression of her madness was believable. Bushmaster in season 2 was a great match for Luke Cage as he took him off his high horse and demanded a more level-headed approach. And the ending of season 2 is where the show is unmatched. The last few scenes showing Luke Cage in the future are truly shocking. I did, by the way, have to remove, Caps, in case you're wondering, a few spoilers, because he had a few spoilers. I want you to watch this show. It really is a good show. So, yeah, I had to condense it a bit there, Caps, but good opinion. Luke Cage is the best Marvel TV show. All right, Murdoxed said none, mind you, none of the Thor movies are good. Ooh, here we go. Thor is undoubtedly the worst MCU franchise. The 4 films range from insulting to grating to boring. Thor, 2011, is just painfully mid and is absolutely nothing special. Loki and Thor are both bland characters and are done way better in the Avengers. The Dark World is absolutely the worst MCU film ever made. It's boring. It adds literally nothing to the franchise except the inclusion of a reality stone. Ragnarok is possibly the most overrated MCU film. The humor is grating. Thor's characterization is nowhere near as strong as in the Avengers films, and the best thing about the franchise, Natalie Portman, is gone. I won't even get started on Love and Thunder because everyone has explained how that movie is trash a billion times. Ouch. There are some enjoyable moments across the films, but they are few and far between in my opinion, and the whole series is just reeks of wasted potential. Also, the soundtrack is fire. Literally. Wow. Again, send hate mail to Murdoxed via the Discord server. All right. Hello, Marvel fans. Well, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? Said that Dark Phoenix is overhated. Really? All right. It's one of the flawed movies with beautiful cinematography. The casting is top-notch, especially Charles Xavier and Magneto. To be honest, I'd rather watch this film than X-Men The Last Stand and Fantastic. It's better than half the MCU. Ooh. Especially the hit movie Morbius. Well, I definitely agree. It's better than everything is better than Morbius, but woo, better than half the MCU. Wow. All right. Love it. That's a good hot take. All right. Master D says She-Hulk was one of the best, mind you, Marvel shows. This will get some responses. By the way, I liked She-Hulk, but anyway, it was one of the best. She-Hulk Attorney at Law was one of the best Marvel shows. It got too much hate for the CGI. It was funny, and the story was good. That's fair. Short and sweet. It is a very good show, by the way. I hope, if you haven't seen it, give it a chance, please. All right, Master D, well done. All right, Daisy Johnson brings us the hot take that Tony Stark is one of my least favorite MCU characters. Look what you've done to him, Daisy. Look at his face. Daisy. All right, you better bring it. Let's see what you got, Daisy. His character seems to backslide in development at the start and the middle, which makes his ending much less impactful. The entire PTSD side of the character from Iron Man 3 was almost immediately dropped, with it only gaining references rather than development in both Age of Ultron and Civil War. His PTSD should have only gotten worse after Age of Ultron, which only ever gains a reference in one scene in Civil War. Him recruiting Peter for Civil War seemed so inconsistent, even just looking at his own point in the movie itself. This also seems to rub salt in the wound for his relationship with Harley. Wow, those are some good points. All right. Number 6, Seppi says there isn't a single bad MCU canon entry. Wow, not a single one. Okay? All the way from the first Iron Man movie up to Secret Invasion, none of it actually sucks. Yes, everything has their downs, ranging from some movies having some unbalanced or boring elements, like Thor movies or some of the older MCU movies, to some ideas being uncooked, Wanda's Quicksilver, Love and Thunder's Gore, Miss Marvel's Clandestines. But overall, each piece of media has enjoyable elements. Eternals is beautifully shot, The Incredible Hulk has some decent action, and Age of Ultron has some good character moments. That's a few examples. Yes, the bad elements should be criticized in hopes that they can be eliminated in future projects. But at the end of the day, I think we should stop and appreciate the better aspects of the movies. I know I said I won't comment much, but Seppi, you took the words right out of my mouth. This is one of the few hot takes that's actually positive. There are some positive ones, and I agree 100%, Seppi. 100%. And yet this showed up as the number 6 hot take. So I guess most people don't agree. Too funny. Anyway, good one, Seppi. Really appreciate it. All right, the top 5 hot takes coming up. Number 5, by the masked one, Phase 3 is the only good phase in the MCU. The only one. For Phase 3, year after year, there was banger after banger, like Civil War, Doctor Strange, highly underrated, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Homecoming, Ragnarok, Infinity War, Endgame, and Far From Home. With Black Panther, Ant-Man 2, and Captain Marvel just being mid. I say it's the only good phase because a majority of it is really good, while Phases 1, 2, and 4 don't really have that. Phase 1 is full of mediocrity, with only Iron Man and Avengers being good. Both are severely overrated. Phase 2 does have a few bangers like Guardians of the Galaxy, Winter Soldier, and Iron Man 3, but is dragged down by the abominations of Thor 2, Age of Ultron, and the alright Ant-Man 1. And the real hot take is that Phase 4 is just bad at points, with WandaVision, Loki, No Way Home, and Werewolf being the only highlights. All right, there you go. Number 4, Spurples says the most enjoyable MCU film, that would be Ant-Man and the Wasp. Interesting. All right, it's not the best MCU movie by a long shot, but just judging by entertainment value, it's the most fun to watch. The pacing is great, the humor ranges from serviceable to actually pretty great, the action scenes stay fresh and interesting, and the chase for the lab in particular is like a lightning round of the movie's strengths, and it's just so much fun. I totally get why people trash on this one, but it's my go-to when I'm multitasking or when I just want to turn my brain off for a bit. Well defended, Spurples. Well defended. Number 3, Luke 2 Max says Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is better than every, I want to stress the word every MCU project. I love it. I can tell you, by the way, Luke 2 Max is the strongest fan I have ever seen for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. If you have any questions about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., go to Luke 2 Max. He will tell you. But anyway, he says it is better than every MCU project. After having watched every MCU movie and show, excluding most Marvel TV, I can confidently say none of it is comparable to how Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. made me feel in any way. The other movies are great, but nothing comes close to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which holds my favorite characters pretty much ever. Wow. Love it. Love it. That is a true fan of the show. All right, number 2, Will says Quantumania and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 are equally good. Equally good. Yeah, both Scott Lang and Drax are very confused by this. So that's okay. Let's give Will a chance to defend it. Will says Quantumania is very overhated and Guardians 3 is very overrated. And they're actually about equal. Enjoyable, but nothing extraordinary. Both take us to wacky worlds where the wacky humor works and isn't Thor 4 levels of bad. And while Guardians had better character development in the heroes, Kang was a much better villain than the High Evolutionary, who was being hyped up as a terrifying villain the entire time and was taken out in under 10 seconds by the Guardians. Fair. What I do enjoy about these, you see the hot take and you think there's no way I'm going to agree with it. Zero way. Then you read the explanations and you're like, okay, maybe I still don't agree, but I see where you're coming from. So, without further ado, the winner of the hot takes contest for the hottest take on the server, that would go to Ava, who dared to say the first Guardians movie is mediocre. Look at all the Guardians. Look how shocked they are. Look at Rocket. Look what you've done to Rocket, Ava. Come on now. All right, what do you got, Ava? What do you got? Here we go. It's not terrible or anything. I don't think there's anything about it that's actually bad, like certain elements of Love and Thunder. Man, Love and Thunder just keeps taking the hits. Like certain elements of Love and Thunder, Quantumania, and Black Widow. But a lot of the elements just didn't work for me. The Guardians getting together felt like way too many coincidences happening at once. The conflict between them feels forced, too. With the Avengers happening just a couple years earlier, it just feels like a rehash of that with the conflict between the team members as the team forms. Some scenes go on for way too long. For example, the Cherry Bomb song scene. For the story, it just felt okay to me. It had a fair share of good and bad moments, but it didn't really feel groundbreaking. Fascinating. You got some good points, Ava. You got some good. I didn't think you could convince me, but you got some very good points. So there you go. These are the hottest takes on the server. Let me know again. Did you agree with some of these? Did you disagree? Did the explanations sell you on them? And are there any hot takes you have that we didn't include here that people didn't come up with? Let me know. Leave those in the comments. I'd love to hear your opinions. So yeah, as you can definitely tell from this video, we do have a Discord server, right? Like duh. And if you'd like to join, we'd love to have you. I will leave a pinned comment with a link to the server. Also, if you don't mind, like this video, subscribe if you haven't already. You can check out more content, and we can all continue to enjoy the ever-growing, ever-changing Marvel Cinematic Universe.